Happy Halloween! It's time for kids to dress up in costumes, adults to drink themselves into a coma because they realize that the horrors of real life are scarier than ghosts, and gaming YouTubers to scream at things and tell their audio clips. Also, it's time to watch a ton of horror movies. You got all these horror movies you've never seen before lined up and ready to watch, and then you just end up watching Suspiria and Dead Alive again like every year. And you think, oh boy, I could watch A Girl Walks Home Alone at Night finally, but there is a remake of Suspiria coming out, so, you know, I might as well watch that again. So we're gonna talk about Suspiria. When people think of Giallo, which not a lot of people outside of Italy do, they usually think of Suspiria because it's probably the most popular movie in the genre. But Suspiria is not exactly the best movie to describe what Giallo is. It isn't really a horror genre. It's a murder mystery noir genre that's key features are being Italian and having a lot of blood. Giallo films showed up in the decades after the Italian Golden Age, where everyone was making turbo-realistic films about how being working class sucked, because in post-World War II Italy, it really did. This neorealism movement of the 50s blew up the filmmaking scene in the decades to come, which paved the way for spaghetti westerns and Giallo films. In the 60s, Giallo started slow, with movies like Blood and Black Lace creating the pieces of what would become the genre. A masked killer, a knife, brutally murdered sexy girls with plenty of blood. But there wasn't much more than a seed here, and it took a backseat to spaghetti westerns. You probably know about spaghetti westerns, and that probably has something to do with the Dollars trilogy. Sergio Leone was going super hard and was getting super popular all over the world. After the Dollars trilogy, Leone made another spaghetti western called Once Upon a Time in the West, with a screenplay written by Dario Argento, which completes this weird paragraph about how these two movies have anything to do with each other. Once Upon a Time in the West was Dario Argento's first movie. Well, the first one that he worked on. His directorial debut was a movie called The Bird with the Crystal Plumage. This was very much a Giallo film, and this very much popularized the genre. This movie started Giallo fever in the 70s, in which over 100 Giallo films were made. It was the first movie in his Animal trilogy, and the first movie in a trilogy I like to call an English-speaking artist goes to a European country, witnesses a murder, and is the only one who can solve it. The next movie in that trilogy, the one I made up, is Deep Red, another Argento Giallo film that delves a teeny bit into the supernatural with the psychic stuff at the beginning, but is still very much a whodunit. This film really made Argento a hit outside of Italy, and also helped kickstart the slasher genre, with movies like Friday the 13th and Halloween taking huge inspiration from it. And after that, he got to work on Suspiria, which is the movie we're going to be talking about. Much less of a standard Giallo film, and much more of a supernatural horror film than he had ever made before. And it was the first movie in his next trilogy, the Three Mothers trilogy about 3 super witches, each a worse movie than the last. But this one was really good, and a lot of people thought it was really good, and it had a lot of influence on other movies. So we're gonna talk about it. The movie starts off with a girl named Susie, who flew in from America to join a prestigious German dance school. On her way in, she notices a girl leave the school. That girl is then murdered. The next day, Susie settles in, she gets sick, and then drugged, and then makes a new friend, Sarah, who is friends with the murdered girl. Sarah thinks there's something crazy going on because all of the teachers leave at the exact same time, the director of the school is spooky and no one has ever seen her before, and also her friend was murdered. Her suspicions are made more believable when the blind pianist at the school is murdered suddenly after he tells one of the top teachers to fuck off. Sarah wants Susie to help figure out what's going on, but Susie is too busy being drugged. But she does notice that the teachers aren't leaving, they're going somewhere in the school. So, Sarah goes looking, and then is thrown into the entire room filled with barbed wire that all schools have. Susie is then all alone, realizes she's being drugged, is attacked by a bat, and then you get to the last 10 minutes where the movie just goes all out. The plot moves very deliberately, building tension and letting you breathe in the scenery that was so lovingly crafted. It spends its time getting to its kills, and when they come, you feel that Argento creativity as hard as he wants you to. And it works in the construction of the entire movie too. It slowly builds to the end when Susie discovers a hidden door, and then it just goes insane. Horror and noir are a good combination. Where most Giallo is noir with some horror influence, this is the inverse. The murderer is somewhere and we need to find where he is. And they do, but the murderer? Witches. It's just a coven of witches. All the teachers running the school are witches, and they're killing people left and right. Which is a fun twist on the genre. Imagine if, like, Humphrey Bogart was walking around doing detective work, while Peter Lorre was just looking shady, and then he got to the end of a string of clues and it turned out the murderer was Dracula. The reason for this jump into the paranormal was that Argento had read some Thomas de Quincey, and was enamored by it. Specifically, the essay Lavagna and Our Ladies of Sorrow, an essay that talked about the Roman goddess of midwives and 3 possible more negative counterparts. Mater Lacrimarum, Mother of Tears, Mater Suspiriorum, Mother of Whispers, and Mater Tenebrarum, Mother of Darkness. He also became super interested in esotericism, the Aleister Crowley sort of science mixed with religion, tarot cards, moon positions, etc., that at that time was forming into what we know as Wicca. So boom, put those things together, and you got witches. But really, this isn't the most impressive thing about the movie. So let's talk about what really put this movie on the map. This is the tasty, nougaty center of this movie. It is gorgeous. From the very first shot and on to the very end, the color shines. It's distinctly vibrant and flashy. Every bit of color in this movie, whether it's the colored lighting or just paint on a wall, pops and glows. A lot of this is due to the fact that it was shot using the same type of Technicolor cameras used for The Wizard of Oz and Gone with the Wind. At this point in time, cameras had evolved beyond the need for the 3 film strip color cameras that gave Technicolor its name in the 30s, but they gave Argento the vibrance he wanted in the colors. All of this is enhanced by cinematographer Luciano Tovoli's apparent eye for putting the camera in a place that shows this off. The movie is very geometric. You got squares and triangles all over the place, running around, framing shit, making things pop. And these, of course, look really good with all the vibrant colors. Another reason everything is so geometric is because Argento wanted it to have that German expressionalist look. Crazy sets and sharp architecture, everything looking tilted and ancient, and all of this combined gave Argento the visual feeling he wanted. A weird, unreal, dreamlike movie. A million lights of a million colors that seem to come from nowhere. This helps put you in Susie's head when she's being drugged, and in the heads of all of the other characters who discover something unbelievable about their school. The truth is, there isn't much to say about how gorgeous the movie is that hasn't already been said by everyone else, or that can't be said by just showing you some of it. The visuals make up a lot of what makes this movie, and I feel like Argento really did nail the expressionist feel, but Argento had something that the silent film expressionists did not. Goblin is the punchline to a joke I made the first time I watched this movie, and will make every time after. Holy shit, a goblin wrote the music to this? Inclusive hiring at work even in the 70s, which is then followed up a few seconds later by, God damn, this goblin makes some good-ass music! Goblin is an Italian prog rock group that sort of gained its fame for working with Argento. They started working together on Deep Red. He was going to have another guy write the music and Goblin perform, but Argento and the other guy had a falling out, so Argento gave Goblin 1 day and 1 night to write a score for the movie. And it does not show. The score for Deep Red is fantastic. It moved from jazzy and fun to horrifying as the movie did. Goblin had a talent for film scores. And then they came back with a vengeance in this movie. One of the most memorable horror soundtracks ever that'll stick with you forever, even if you've only seen it once. Hell, it's probably already possessed you just listening to it in this video. A lot of horror movies, I was about to say nowadays, but what I mean is really 5 years ago, because we're in kind of a renaissance now. But a lot of those horror movies would stay quiet and then startle you with a loud noise when the monster showed up. This isn't what this movie does. In the moments of tension, it doesn't get quiet. The sound goes insane. It fills your senses with the same panic as the characters. Drums beat and beg your heart to beat with it. People scream, the instruments pluck and blow frantically. And when the deed is done, it smooths out, letting you breathe in the horror of what just happened. God damn, that Goblin makes some good-ass music. Dario Argento's directorial debut created an entire genre of film. His film Deep Red is usually cited as one of, if not the best movie in that genre. And then there's Suspiria, his magnum opus. A movie that takes everything he had done previously, twists, and molds it into something wonderful. And of course, the reason I'm making this video is because there is a remake of Suspiria coming out soon. It's being directed by Luca Guadagnino, the guy who put out Call Me By Your Name last year, so it's in good directorial hands, and...
You have to decide, what is it you want to be for this company?
There's more in that building than what you can see, Doctor.
It looks like a completely different beast. Seriously, I've been really enveloping myself in Argento for this video, and it looks like I was transported to another universe. It looks more like The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo than it does Suspiria. And I'm totally fine with that. It looks like it's taking a slower, more modern artistic approach to this movie. Something more in common with Hereditary or The Witch. With Katakawa turning Yume Nikki into something different, I didn't like it because it took something that was interesting and used the medium effectively, and turned it into the safest, most boring thing that it possibly could. This looks like it's taking something that used the medium effectively, and is turning it into something that uses the medium effectively in a totally different way. So I'm excited for this new take on the movie I love. And based on some of those early reviews, it might be the best horror movie of the year, and that's toppling some serious contenders. And Thom Yorke is doing the soundtrack for this movie. I mean, okay, if David Fincher gets to keep Trent Reznor locked in his basement, shit, why not? And we have a couple of tracks, and it sounds really, really good. I don't know if it's gonna be no Goblin, though.